Hello again. In Kenneth Scott Latourette, A History of Christianity, in the Course of Western Europe chapter, we're in the history of Charlemagne. He's already listed Charlemagne's great accomplishments as both statesman and nominal head of the church, the biggest influencer of those ages in terms of the relationship between church and state. He goes on, Charlemagne perfected a system of tithes for the support of bishops and the parish clergy. For authority, for the principle, the clergy used and cited the Mosaic law. The custom had spread gradually. In 585, a synod of Frankish prelates asked that it be regularized. Pepin the Short gave tithes legal status as a recognized tax, and Charlemagne further endorsed them. In the Frankish domains and elsewhere in the Western Church, the support of the clergy and the care of the poor also came from offerings, many of them mass stipends, in return for which masses were said for the donors or for those whom they designated. Charlemagne encouraged the repair, embellishment, and construction of churches and the improvement of public worship. Pepin the Short had already furthered the spread of the Gregorian chant. Charlemagne sought to make universal the form of the liturgy which had developed at Rome. He endeavored to raise the morals of the laity and to improve the acquaintance of the common man with the main principles of the faith. To this end, he commanded the clergy to preach on the creed, the prayer, that is, prayer in the Ten Commandments. In theory, all Christians were to know the Lord's Prayer and the creed. Through ecclesiastical legislation, he strove to inculcate and enforce the sanctity of the marriage tie, and that in spite of his own errant example. Charlemagne also stressed the education of the clergy. Even after the reforms of Boniface and Chrodegang, great room remained for improvement. In many monasteries, learning had lapsed, and idleness and ignorance abounded. His purpose was the advancement of religion and the church, but as a foundation, the study of the great authors of Roman antiquity was stimulated. Indeed, that we have the works of these pagan writers is in many instances due to the copies made in this period of literary revival. The form of Latin script was encouraged, a vast improvement over what had immediately gone before it, which became standard in succeeding centuries and is familiar in our printed books of today. To aid in this educational program, Charlemagne drew scholars from wherever he could find them. They came from Ireland, Spain, Italy, Gaul, and notably England. In the 7th and 8th centuries, some of the Anglo-Saxon monasteries had become centers of learning. Most famous of all their scholars was Bede. This is the Bede that is sometimes referred to as the Venerable Bede. Reared in a monastery in Northumbria, in the present county Durham, he was diligent in his religious duties and in his studies. He used Latin easily, knew some Greek, and was master of such of the learning of the day as was available to him. He wrote voluminously and on many subjects, but is best remembered for his Ecclesiastical History of England, our fullest source for the conversion of the Anglo-Saxons and the early years of the English Church. Alcuin, the most distinguished of the savants at the court of Charlemagne, a scion of a noble family, related to Willibrord and a younger contemporary of Boniface, had been educated at York under the direction of one of the disciples of Bede. He had headed the school in that city. A trusted intimate of Charlemagne, with no great originality, he was immensely learned, taught in the palace school which his royal master had set up, wrote extensively, and died in 804, ripe in years and honors, as head of the monastery of Saint Martin of Tours. Charlemagne was not especially interested in furthering asceticism. He founded a few monasteries, but to him they were not important for the practice of the full Christian life, but rather as centers of education and civilization. Charlemagne concerned himself with the papacy. He renewed his father's grants to the See of Peter and treated the popes with respect. However, he made it clear that he expected them to support him with their prayers, while leaving to him practical matters of political action and administration. He may not have been entirely happy when the Pope took the initiative of crowning him Roman Emperor, as he was kneeling at the high altar on that memorable Christmas day. This is in the year 800. That act, however, had fully as far-reaching significance as the papal sanction to the assumption of the royal power by Pepin. It established the precedent that the imperial coronation of the Western successors to the Caesars must be by the Pope, and thereby accorded that pontiff an enhanced position. Next time, the death of Charlemagne and the decline of the Carolingian dynasty. I'll put in a link to Ray Franz's discussion, Ray Franz being the so-called apostate member of the Jehovah's Witness governing body back in the 70s and early 80s. He, in his second book, asked the question, was Jonathan, that is the son of Saul, was Jonathan loyal to Saul, that is God's organization, or was he loyal to his friend David, who he knew to be the true anointed of Jehovah? It's a very important issue because, of course, loyalty in cults is all important. So it affords a good test case of what is our higher loyalty or what is our highest priority when it comes to worship of God and relationships with our fellow human beings. So I'll put that link on your screen to Ray Franz's discussion of Jonathan and David in his second book, In Search of Christian Freedom. See you next time.